this is worth it.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to my Let's Play of the Baldur's Gate Trilogy. In this episode, we'll be finishing up Brinn for the last time, and going to the Sahuagin city, or however you pronounce that name. It's not a necessary area, it's optional, but you get a really good item there, and I will talk about it when we grab it. It was better than I ever thought it was, and it's been in the game for forever.
It's done. I'm there.
Welcome to my humble establishment.
I've been seeing some people on Reddit talking about the benefits of dual classing over multi-classing or vice versa, and I figured I would weigh in on the subject because it's been long discussed, and I don't think my me talking about it will change that, but I figured I'd weigh in on the subject. And generally speaking, unless you want a very specific ability from a class, then I think multi-classing is better. The reason I chose to dual class for this character is because I wanted Berserk, but I also wanted to be a mage, so it just made sense to dual class this character. I've had great success doing a swashbuckler mage, although I don't think that is necessary as a solo. The reason I don't think swashbuckler mage is particularly good as a solo is because you can't really rely on your melee attacks as a level 10, let's say, swashbuckler. You just don't do enough damage. And you don't get the benefit of extra attacks per round. You don't get the Thaco of being a fighter. Sure, you get a tiny bit of to hit and to damage, and some armor class bonuses for being a swashbuckler, but they are super outweighed by fighter classes when you're choosing the dual class. And once you hit your mage level 11, your mage abilities are going to be just way more powerful. So my recommendation for that class is that if you're going with a party, playing normally, then that's a great character if you don't want to carry around another thief. If you don't like Yen Jansen or Imoen or Nalia.
There you are, my friend. Very good indeed.
Like I've said before, or I don't know if I've said before, my favorite class in the entire game is Fighter Thief multi-class, particularly as a short character, just because you get great saving throws. I like to play as a gnome because you don't get any penalties to your combat stats like you would with a halfling. You lose a point of strength. As a dwarf, you lose a point of dexterity. I think in the long term, the extra point of dexterity from 19 rather than 18, once you get the tome in Baldur's Gate 1, I think you're going to mitigate more damage from having that one extra point of armor class compared to the amount of health that you'll get. Or I misspoke, but I think the point stands. I think higher armor class trumps more HP in this game. Another reason why Fighter Thief is my favorite is partially because it was the first real solo I ever did. I did a swashbuckler mage in a party up until Throne of Ball, and then I was like, I wonder if this guy can do Throne of Ball by himself, and sure enough he could.
The ship lurched.
And so I did Watchers Keeping Throne of Ball with that character, but it wasn't a full-on solo. My first solo was with that Fighter Thief, and this was before the Enhanced Editions came out. So you were able to use Simulacrum either from a scroll or from Balor's Helm once you get your high level abilities, and you can drop all the spike traps from your Simulacrum, and then you could stack up your traps on top of that, and they wouldn't count towards the 5 trap maximum. So you could have like, I think 10, probably more if you did, mislead, project image, things like that make more copies of your character. You could drop more, but 10 was always enough. You could literally one-shot some of the higher, like the stronger enemies. I believe I one-shot Demogorgon with it. I one-shot Furkrag. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do. I believe that got patched out, unfortunately. I think the power of the character still stands, even if you can't stack up all those spike traps. Spike trap is just super strong. You also get the time stop traps, and because you're a high level fighter, you ordinarily can 100 to 0 anything. You know, dual wielding weapons. Ordinarily, or I used Flail of Ages and I think Crom Fair. Then I think I swapped out the Crom Fair for the +3 Scimitar. If I remember, once we're back in Athkatla, I'll show you the one I'm talking about. But it's sold by the merchant from Icewind Dale in the Copper Coronet. It's a +3 weapon, like I said. It has a good poison effect, similar to the Venom Dagger from Baldur's Gate 1. And it also gives you an extra attack per round. And that gets attributed to your main weapon. So if you're attacking with the Flail of Ages +5, then obviously you're going to be doing a ton of damage. So use any item is really what it boils down to, in addition to those the traps. And the ability to go invisible is pretty handy. Sometimes it gets you out of a tight spot, but it's nothing that you know your scrolls can't do already. That's one thing I meant to say that's a benefit of high-level Fighter Thief multiclass, is that all these scrolls that you pick up that I've been memorizing this entire time, instead of memorizing them, you just keep the useful ones. And then your scroll case or scroll cases would end up being, you know, your bag of tricks. You could have a bunch of stone skins in there saved up. You could have some haste, improved haste, invisibilities, mirror images, of course, everything like that. And the benefit of it, in addition to having all those scrolls, is that, like I've said before, you can use Simulacrum, cast those spells from your quick slot, cast the scrolls, I should say, and it doesn't get consumed on your main character. So you could just Simulacrum, cast improved haste upon your main character, and then go into the room that you know there's going to be a tough fight in, and then just go crazy. Although that being said, it's not really a necessary tactic, because as a high-level fighter, you get improved whirlwind attack, or whatever it's called, the one that gives you 10 attacks per round for one round. What I generally did was stack up about 10 or 12 of those, and then have like 3 or 4 hardiness for my high-level abilities for fighter, and that was plenty. Hardiness you can stack on top of itself, if you didn't know that. I'm not sure if it's been patched out, but you used to be able to. So you could have, you know, 60% damage reduction to physical damage, and because you're a high-level thief, you can stack up magic resist. It's pretty easy to get up to, you know, 75, 80, 90, even 100% magic resistance. Although again, because you're a high-level thief, you use any items. So if you're worried about spells at all, you can get this cloak that I've been talking about in this area. You could put that on. You could put on the Shield of the Lost, and then just go crazy with your improved whirlwind attack. Because even though you get rid of your second weapon, you're still doing 10 attacks per round with your whirlwind attack. So, long story short, that's my favorite just because it has a lot of utility. You're ready for any fight at all. So here I was just trying to run around activating all the traps. I know there's some imprisonment traps, maze, or whatever, the instant kill ones. I wanted to activate those while I had Berserk going, and I missed a couple, and you'll see me die to it. here in a little bit.
Hello there.
So I'm fairly familiar with this game and the Forgotten Realms lore in general. So if you're not as familiar with it as I am, Kelvin is his last name, or his pseudonym is Blackstaff. So he gets the staff. The woman there gets the silver pendant because she is, I think she's Illustrial, who is the queen or lady of whatever. She, oh, what is this city called? Silver Moon or something like that. Dritz gets the scimitar, if I haven't said that already, and then Elminster gets the pipe, and the fighter guy, who I'm not familiar with, gets the helm. So here we get our first high level ability, and I was trying to think of what would be most useful immediately, and I think I end up going with Improved Alacrity. Planetar is extremely good. Obviously it's the best summon in the game. I was reading Energy Blades here. It would be great for a single class mage or a sorcerer, just because it's a straight DPS spell. And Dragon Breath, of course, is great because it's an instant cast with the Robe of Vecna and the amulet that I'm wearing. I ended up going with Improved Alacrity because, generally speaking, you can cast basically your entire spellbook in the time it takes for Improved Alacrity to dissipate. Particularly if you set up your spellbook in the manner that, like with that in mind. And by that I mean you want spells that don't have any casting time. You want spells that have 5 or less. So in terms of Improved Alacrity, it doesn't take away any time in the round. And if you activate what is it? The auto pause on spellcast, then you don't miss out on any time in between spellcasts, and you can just burn out your entire spellbook. A good spells to do that are Lower Resistance or Pierce Magic, and then you can stack up Sunfires, Skull Traps. Trying to think of other direct damage spells. Chromatic Orbs are fine, although generally the death is going to be resisted unless you cast Greater Malison or anything else like that.
Give me some direction. Yeah, I'll see to it.
Occasionally you'll see the sword icon pop up. That's just because I'm toggling my my Staff of the Magi, so I get my invisibility back.
Time is up for you, my friend.
Talking about solo characters, I've also done a Mage Thief multiclass, which was quite strong, but unfortunately, at a certain point you don't really need any more thieving levels, and you want some of that XP to be going to your mage. You do get all the spike traps and your normal traps and everything like that, and the high level abilities, use any item, everything that the thieves are great for. But you miss out on the Swashbuckler's improved armor class and their improved to hit and damage. which does come into play occasionally with thrown weapons in particular. I like going daggers. I think swashbucklers can use axes, in which case the Azure Edge would be another good choice. I might be wrong there. Trying to think of other... Oh, I've done a blade before, because essentially that's what a thief mage is emulating. But a blade is just a solo character that does everything. But he does nothing great, he just does everything okay. He was not a weak character, certainly, but there's a few considerations if you're thinking of taking a blade or a scald through solo. You cannot use the Robe of Vecna until you get your use any item perk, and that's because it's gated to mages only. It's a little annoying, but you get level 24, which I believe is the high level abilities for Thief, that level. You get that so quickly. But that, and you can't use anything higher than level 6 scrolls, or level 6 spells. Of course you can use the scrolls, but you lose out on a lot of that late game mage damage because of that. There you saw I got lucky with a chromatic orb, that he died. Either he was weak from before, or he just straight died because he failed a saving throw. I've noticed that it doesn't give you the feedback for that in the kill feed, or like the rolls and everything. It doesn't say if the enemy is doing its saving throws for chromatic orb or not. So I guess long story short, I'll wrap up my point here with dual class versus multi-class. Unless you want very specific abilities from a specific class kit, then there's absolutely no reason to do dual class, because 9 times out of 10 it's better to have two classes getting high level abilities rather than just the one. One thing to note is if you're a dual class fighter, let's say fighter mage, or even fighter thief, you can get Grandmastery in a certain weapon. That being said, I don't think it makes that big of a difference between Grandmastery or specialization, especially once you get to a high level and you have a weapon in your offhand that's giving you an extra attack per round. The extra damage and the extra, I think, half attack per round, I don't think that's enough of a consideration to forego an entire class's an entire class worth of high level abilities. But you saw I sided with the king, who's all inbred, and the Sahuagin are going to die, and I get my butt chewed out right here for it. I don't care one way or the other. I've played the way I've played, this area through both ways. Excuse me. The XP gains are virtually identical. I get the wave blade here, which is cool.
Things go well on the surface. The temple of
But I just did it that way because it was faster.
I am pleased. My revenge was...
But anyway, we've reached the end of this episode. Thank you for listening, and I will catch you in the next one.
So, you did offer some interesting opportunities.
Yes, Matron Mother. Excuse.
Our first prisoners arrive, Matron Mother.
These two rank high among the surface scum, Matron. What is to be their fate?
Their presence sickens me. Kill them.
Perhaps it would be better to interrogate them first.
Jonathan, what are you doing with these monsters?
An odd way to question Irenicus. Did you not like his tone?
I reconsidered, Matron. Your command was the wiser.
The great depths of the Underdark.